Can you put it on the line when the stakes high? Will you let up on the grind when the stakes high? Do you still put in the time when the stakes high? When the stakes high? When the stakes high? Or do you break, huh? Nah, never that. At it every moment I live it so I can tell them that. Now I'm at the business's acres where I can settle at. I don't use my credit for them but throw up the Equifax. I do never tell them facts. I do never give them game. You gon' need a hazard hat. Dropping bombs, curry range. Money when the surge change. Double on my current name. Minute when I said it, no condition on it. Perfect change. That's for the collectors. My work could connect us up your stair work is some levels. Me and my some rebels, we don't take nothing they sell us. Deep down in the cellar, underground till they respect us. And they gotta respect us. Respect it. You put it on the line when the stakes high. Will you let up on the grind when the stakes high? Do you still put in the time when the stakes high? When the stakes high? When the stakes high? Or do you break, huh? Do you put it on the line when the stakes high? Do you let up on the grind when the stakes high? Do you still put in the time when the stakes high? Hey, when the stakes high? Do you put it on the line when the stakes high? Do you let up on the grind when the stakes high? Do you still put in the time when the stakes high? Hey, when the stakes high? Please understand that I ain't moving too fast. I'm just moving with plans. If you ain't by the advance and can't include you in futures, I'm investing the time that it take. I'ma keep pursuing. Rapid racing this game that we playing. No plan on losing. If you comfortable cruising, then we won't get along. I ain't just a little messenger. Betcha I seek the throne. They might say it's a spectacle. I'm expecting to show 'em nothing less than this excellence. Yes, whole new image of me, no sketching it. I've been reborn. Click the extra out, I've been stressing it. Less overdid all the underestimates, destined to form and make greatness the norm.
Oh, how's everybody doing out there? You guys hear me okay?
What's up?
A little bit of music, little intro helps me get set up that way. Um, anyway, kind of got a lot to cover. A lot of things have happened since the last stream that we've had. Netflix, I think we'll start there. Big Tig's here with me again. I just wanted to do kind of like a semi-quick market update and just talk about again some of the setups, some of the the ideas that we've had. Netflix is one that's played out just absolutely beautifully. But anyway, going back to Netflix, so we'll just start here and kind of work our way forward. It's got we'll be covering quite a few different things today. Kind of spur of the moment stream, wasn't really planning on one today, but Netflix breaking out of this parabolic downtrend that we talked about. And I said basically once this starts to break this trend line, it's the rate of descent, right? It's the rate of change that is the meaningful it's like the pivot, I guess, if you will. That's like when it's I'll start to pay a lot more attention and start to switch from being like ultra bearish on Netflix to more neutral and expecting some kind of relief rally at some point. But you can see it started to break out. It flipped to the other side of this parabolic line, gave it another test, which spent a week down here, formed a nice little range, and then obviously we're getting like a really sizable move. Also, what we had talked about, the reasons why behind some catalysts to potentially watch is Netflix ultimately not participating in the deal. So Take, I don't know if you want to talk about that, but that's basically we're getting a really nice pump, or a nice mean reversion, if you will, just because the deal fell through for Netflix. But ultimately, I think that obviously shareholders slash investors are breathing a sigh of relief, and you're seeing a nice pop in the stock. So if you're following along on Netflix, good for you.
Yeah, it was definitely interesting that I mean, we kind of called it. I think there's probably still some room. I think it was like $103 before they announced the deal, and I think they also get like a 2.8 billion or 2.9 billion dollar breakup fee. So instead of spending a bunch of money, now they're getting some.
I mean, I think like the yearly pivot is at 103, which this seems like, again, this is like a natural kind of target, like a natural place for it to go, to at least come up and test this. I wouldn't be too surprised. This is a really nice move. It doesn't get there immediately. It certainly doesn't have to, but you're getting some nice kind of reversion type action. I want to look at, I care more about, yeah, there you go. Okay, so I would say 103, 104 is a really nice kind of target, I would say, over the next month. It might not take that long, even. It could happen sooner. I just don't like, I do like, we are at a resistance level right here. This is your weekly Tenkin. Price has been stuck here basically since I started looking at it this morning, and it's just a natural, like, this is a reversion, right? It's just not like a full on like 50% retracement, but this is a reversion target. It's stuck here right now. And now it's, do we spend a bit of time consolidating around here, kind of adjusting to this big, this kind of big shift, or do we kind of just finish the reversion faster than that? I don't really have too much of an opinion on that, because this is like a dramatic, obviously the thing is pre-deal, Netflix was, what did you say, I was at like 103, something like that. But a lot, like, things have changed, like market conditions have also changed since then too. So it's like, to me, it doesn't have to like just go back to 103. Although I do think that's a really interesting target. Like, it is. It's like you have your yearly pivot, you have your your weekly Kijun here. That is definitely a big area of interest for myself. All the stuff that I bought lower, I am paying a lot of attention here, put it that way. Because it was really, again, like the stuff that we had talked about with the deal. Ultimately, like we thought that there was a pretty good chance of that falling through and this getting your pump like you're seeing. So it's just like this, we're in that part of the trade now. As far as managing that, and this is not a bad area. Not financial advice, but this isn't a bad area to like take a bit off. Unless you're like fundamentally bullish on Netflix, which I am. I love Netflix. Again, I've explained it. Whole house uses it. We've tried to get rid of it before. That lasts about 2 weeks before kids start complaining, and new show comes out or something. Then you ultimately get it back. So anyway, I think it's good, but kind of looking around this 103, 104, 105 kind of ish area, and then reevaluate. It's kind of like what I would put as like a top side move for like this initial. This initial kind of reversion / rally, whatever you want to call it. And it's okay to spend some time chopping around in here for a while, readjusting, and then, again, does it go up or down from there? Who knows? But we are at kind of the two areas of interest where I had high conviction that we would see, basically. So beyond that, you take it one step at a time. But I do think, again, 103, 104, something like that would be a nice kind of like finishing the thesis of deal falling through, stock pump, et cetera, et cetera. Still looks good here. I don't know if you have anything to add on that, Tig.
No, that's pretty much it on that one. Pretty cut and dry.
So another one, I'll let you speak on this one for a minute if you want. But I figure this is kind of a natural segue into the Lionsgate. To the Lionsgate.
Yeah, I love me some Lionsgate. Well, I mean, if you just think about it, I mean, obviously Netflix and Amazon, a bunch of the companies that are in that sector or whatever, they need content, and Lionsgate has one of the biggest libraries, especially for such a small company. I think it's like $2 billion market cap ish. But they have, the TV division is something like I would think Netflix would be very interested in. They've always made good shows that have ended up doing great with the syndications. Mad Men, Weeds, Orange is the New Black. I mean, they've had a lot of success. I mean, I think a lot of those series have actually been on Netflix.
Yep.
So so I mean, the TV division I think would be, very interesting for Netflix, and then plus the library, plus you're going from looking at I don't even remember how big the deal was for Warner Brothers, but it was tens of billions, and Lionsgate's much more palatable, I guess, for Netflix at this point. So
yeah. So I have
pretty interesting.
I have a shameless plug here for Barron Street Research, by the way. So like, some of these streams are going to be taking place there really soon as starting next week. For those of you that have been following along, like that is Big Tig and I's co-channel and research firm that we've started, and to kind of, again, it's stuff like if you like the Netflix idea, which was ultimately correct on that, Lionsgate, stuff like that. I know he's talked about copper already, and there's a lot of like really good stuff coming out, in my opinion. If you're interested in that, Tig, you can put the YouTube channel in the chat where people can check it out, and I will put it in the link in the description of this video later on. But anyway, like that's where we're going to be covering a lot more like fundamental plays, I would say, a lot of fundamental research mixed with my technical analysis, to kind of, again, like try to spot these things before they take place, just like Netflix. That was a good one. But anyway, Lionsgate, we'll look at it quickly from a TA perspective. I didn't think that this had a chance to bounce a little bit sooner than it did, but ultimately got our nice, perfect 618 rejection off of there, which is not a surprise to anybody. And then it came back all the way to your weekly Tenkin, basically, like right into your support yearly pivot. Really nice bounce off of that, obviously. And I don't know, Tig, it's up 9% today. Is it on the back of that deal? Is it like it's probably, like, my guess is it's, maybe a little bit of opium or
Well, it's
something
probably
on that.
it's probably a combination of, I mean, Warner Brothers just sold for $110 billion. So
Yeah.
I
So
mean,
if anything, that helps them
they're,
out.
they're
Yeah.
much smaller. Yeah, they're much smaller, but I mean, it's got to be good for their valuation. Number one, and
Yeah.
then number two is just, they're probably, the only takeout play really right now that's not crazy money, which obviously got Netflix in trouble in the first place. I mean, I think it was 120 something before. Um,
So yeah, to me,
2 weeks
like,
before.
today's bounce makes sense. It's like if anything, it's like ooh, maybe we're in a better position than we were, yes, than a few days ago or whatever. But from a technical perspective, again, you came right down to your yearly pivot, came down to your weekly Tenkin. This is like a strong support that you want to see held, which did, beautifully. Again, really good resistance, really good support. Now you're kind of back in the middle of that. For me, like, Lionsgate, to really take the next leg up and have this, I will circle it. So have this be your higher low, in order to see some of those higher targets that we talked about. What I really want to see is a weekly close above cloud. I want to see it get back above cloud, preferably above kind of the top of this resistance zone that we have here. So it's around 929, 930, something like that. I think if we get a weekly close above there, then I would be looking for a new high. Basically, I would be looking for this to get taken out, and start moving up to some of these higher targets. I think that, again, from a technical aspect, this one looks really good. As far as that happening, but that's what I really want to see in order to kind of check that box and to give it some upside. So basically, I would want to see it close back above 930, on a weekly basis, and then use this cloud, use your Kumo, this red Senku Span B right here. I want to use that as support, basically, like it tried to do here. And that's essentially like what I would like to see for that continuation to the upside. So far, so good. But you're just back on the underside of this box, right? So if you go look at this on a daily time frame, you look at this on a daily time frame again, you came back up literally to the, I didn't actually know because I couldn't tell on the weekly time frame, but the high was 931 today, and you're getting a pretty big, a decent rejection off of this top side zone again. This like reaffirms that I'd want to see that higher level, higher time frame close back above 930. And then yes, I do think that this has a lot of, this has some fair room to run. For now, if anything, like what the daily is kind of suggesting is that we're forming a bit of a range here, and this could take a little while. And that would be okay. So basically, on the daily, you got your bearish TK cross here, which is just telling you essentially that this uptrend is done, right? And now we're entering into a new phase, right? So if you're basically long from here, this is kind of an exit. And, this is like telling you that it's probably, a good idea to exit and reevaluate. Or again, like, we absolutely nailed this golden pocket here at $10. But yeah, that's like this is just telling, again, range. This is like, to me, this is like a range. We're probably gonna be range bound for a little bit. Totally okay. What would trigger me to kind of change my idea about this becoming a range? That weekly close above 9, again, above this red box, what I want to see. So yeah, nice rejection there. And weekly time frame, this could just chop around inside a cloud for a little while. That's totally okay. And honestly, I think, like, if it was to kind of come back down to these lows again, this is a major low that I would watch out for, the 789, somewhere in this region, some kind of swing failure pattern, some kind of, again, like, I think that this is really solid support that I would be paying, quite a bit of attention to. And as long as it's inside a cloud, I think that it's, again, it's not, you have the opposite here, which I do want to point that out. So again, golden pocket to golden pocket, certainly possible. I think that's like this looks pretty good for the time being. But if you were to see like material weakness below here, don't forget about this level, because again, especially stocks, they love the classic 618. I do think that you could get a pretty nice bounce off of here too as well if you were to see that. It doesn't seem highly likely at this point, but if you did, I would definitely be paying a lot of attention to that. Below that, then we got other problems. So anyway, Lionsgate looks good. Kind of like bouncing off of the regions that we expect. Want to see that weekly close above the red box, and then I think this probably is a very nice higher low into another nice trending move, is my guess. All right, Tig, what was that list? I can talk about gold. I'm gonna talk about gold. I think I'm gonna be wrong on this one. I was on this weekly candle that we had here, it seemed highly probable that a major high was in for a while, and I had said that, and I stand by that. Like that, I said that because ultimately, a lot of times when you see candles like this, and you see after massive giant moves like this, that is a very if you traded Bitcoin, if you traded a lot of other things over the years, that's a highly probable top for a while. And again, you got a really nice move to the downside off of this, but the thing is, buyback's been really good. Gold's been holding steady over the last month or so, and it's looking really pretty decent here. Kind of like, I would say it's borderline at the point of invalidating that I think that this is going to be like a high for like a long time. Like a year plus. I think I'm probably going to be wrong on that because gold's still showing quite a bit of strength. And I would say, like, fundamentally, like the reason for owning gold and being in gold hasn't changed. So I think that's kind of like the biggest thing, right? Like, we haven't had any crazy like shifts in monetary policy or anything like that. If anything, we've just had more uncertainty. I'm not going to get too much into that right now in this video. We'll save that for Barron Street. But yes, I do think that, from a TA perspective, we got a really nice move to the downside. We got that really nice move to the downside. It's not prolonged like I kind of thought it would be. So again, I think gold still looks fine. If anything, I think if you're close, I would say if you close a monthly, we can look at a monthly. Nice higher time frame. I mean, look at that. Like, if you close a monthly, anything like this, and it just seems like it's going to continue. So very, again, a lot of weakness early in the month, but very nice recovery. And, I guess the monthly literally closes in an hour and a half, right? It's Friday, isn't it? Is this the monthly close? It is a monthly close. Okay, then. Well, yeah. All right. So yeah, this looks pretty good. Silver, on the other hand, still it's the same story, right? But you're basically back at kind of your R1 here. Silver doesn't look as good to me. Now the thing about silver is it's likely to follow, right? Like, obviously, if gold keeps trending, makes new highs, silver is going to follow at some degree at some point, right? Like, it's and today it's obviously having a nice, it's up 4x versus gold, but it's not the same chart. And I do think, like, you get up to this 100 to 102 level, I still think that you could get a pretty nice trade off of that. It just might be, again, like, if gold is structurally as good as it looks right now, and it closes like that, again, it's hard to be bearish on silver if gold is looking like it's going to make new highs, right? But I would say silver is just silver doesn't look as good as gold, but it's definitely more volatile. It's got bigger moves. Usually, I've been watching it. And I would be, again, like this $100 to like $102 region on silver, I would be careful around here. Again, this is like more, if your bias is gold, it's gonna make new highs, and I would be careful about, like, be careful about trading this region, but it doesn't mean that you can't have like a nice intra-week type trade. And you know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't mean like you can't have a nice trade from here. It's just that, yeah, gold looks really strong, which is a bit shocking to me. So that's one that we'll be keeping an eye on. And I do think, again, just to wrap this up on, you know, the metals aspect, it's, you know, if you close like this, it's man, it's quite a pullback, quite a scare, if you want to call it that. But very strong reaction, and it's going to close the monthly like incredibly strong. So again, that's one that I'm, you know, I don't have much exposure to it. You know, so it's like it's not one that I tend to pay too much attention to anyway, but I just, you know, again, this high is unlikely to remain the high if we close the month like this. Oh, DJ's here. What's up, DJ? So what's next on the list? Netflix is ripping still. Up 14%
XYZ
now. Holy smokes.
or FSLR maybe, or Nvidia, Bitcoin.
Yeah, Nvidia is kind of a good one to touch on. So again, this one's just range bound. You know, had its earnings the other day, really good earnings, and then just nuked. It's, you know, the thought behind Nvidia is like it's not really being rewarded for, like, obviously, right? It's not like the market isn't rewarding it for crushing earnings and you know, et cetera, et cetera. It's just, I think that you're just seeing a bit of, you know, profit taking, a bit of rotation, like kind of like continued rotation out of, you know, these names that have the Mag 7 names, for example, that have been up so much, you know, over the last, you know, period of time. And I think that people are just putting it to work elsewhere. Like, I think that this is literally, you know, again, this is very much range bound. I think, you know, again, if you're trading Nvidia, like, you know, I would kind of like look at this region. It's like, you know, as far as kind of like a range low around 170, you are getting this though, this anchored VWAP off of the low coming into your yearly pivot. Like, I do think that you probably get a really, you know, decent bounce potential off of here. It's kind of like these lows. Like, I would kind of put this as like your kind of like your range low, into, you know, your yearly pivot, anchored VWAP support. Well, this is like way old now. You're 382. So from this low to high, like, this is very good confluence. Again, not financial advice, but this is like the kind of stuff that I like to see. You know, as far as what I would say is a very, very important support zone for Nvidia. I think if you get too much below this, I would be very careful. And you're likely to see, you know, Nvidia is so big now that, like, you know, any of these sizable downside moves, you're seeing it like have some weight with the market, right? Like, it's usually not the best day for the market if Nvidia is down 4%, 3%, something like that. But this, as far as like a support region, I would watch this pretty closely. And then obviously, like, anything around 170 has had really nice bounces. And this has just been range bound, you know, for a while now. And again, I think that there's some rotations being made out of some of these high flyers that have just been having parabolic, you know, crazy, ridiculous moves like this into other things. And you know, it's not the end of the world or anything. You're just seeing some consolidation, but Nvidia continues to perform exceptionally well, you know, as a business. But you're just not, the market isn't quite rewarding that behavior right now. Like, it just isn't, like, for Nvidia. So but again, I think if you see it start to kind of come down to this extreme of this developing range that it's been in for quite a while now, I would maybe mark this area as a important one to watch. And likely, like, I think that this is a pretty decent opportunity to take a trade. Again, not financial advice, but just for myself. If I see Nvidia down in this range, I'm going to be paying a lot of attention. Let's put it that way. And then to the upside, I would say like anything, it needs to really like spend some time back above like 195. It needs to kind of like get back to, the earnings push that it had. I think after hours, it's not showing it here, but after hours, it was like 201, 202, something like that. And then obviously sold off quite a bit the next day. And we're seeing continuation of that now. But yeah, like I don't, again, we'll save the more like fundamental stuff for Barron Street. Um, but I, yeah, don't see Nvidia slowing down anytime soon. Like ranges like this, again, they're perfectly like this is healthy. This is the kind of price action that you really want to see. Or if you're really 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 bullish on Nvidia and you think that it's going to make it's going to make new all-time highs, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, this is like fine. This is okay to see. It's kind of like here, same thing. Like this was like kind of like a more expanded. And you can see like this is a very sizable range, right? And then it broke out here and had a nice, had another nice move. Kind of like your post-tariff, the digestion of tariffs, and then it had a really big move to the upside. You're just range bound again. That's okay. Nothing wrong with that, but like really decent trading range as well. That's your thing. So anyway, it's Nvidia. It's one we'll be tracking. For here, I think lower. Your value area low, this range coming at 175. So maybe, a bit of a bounce somewhere soon. But some major levels to watch to the downside. Again, that 170, you've had 3 nice bounces off of that. And ultimately, wow, this is like a very, very, very nice support zone here around the low to mid 160s. Basically, I think that would be a very fair area to look for, at least a decent bounce off of here on the first test is my guess. What's next? You named some other ones. I heard First Solar, right? Is that one?
Yeah, that's a good one. Now First Solar, XYZ.
First Solar was in
Bitcoin.
this. Yeah, I was kind of like thinking it was gonna follow. This is one I haven't looked at in a while. I mean, I know the solar names have obviously had it. They've had a really nice run up, and now you're kind of seeing the the pullback off of a lot of the solar names. I think that solar. I mean, again, I don't know how much like fundamentals I want to get into here, but I do think that it's not a bad place to look. If you get any kind of like continued weakness in those regions, or like in those names, again, that's probably something that we'll speak a lot more about at Barron Street. So if you're interested in that, that's the link to the Barron Street YouTube is in the chat box right now. But I mean, yeah, like so on First Solar in particular, I don't have like too much to say about that. I would be looking down around this 181, 182 region. You're already kind of like breaking your 50, your 50% retracement, without doing like too much analysis on this, because I think this is one that I probably wait for. I'd want to maybe do like all the solar names at once or something like that. I mean, this is bearish like right now, obviously. You have your last, I mean, geez, just last week. I'm sorry, this was Tuesday. You had your test of your Kijun here, obviously a big gap down. Holy smokes! Like this was a nice short, right? And then you're obviously opening and closing daily candles below cloud again. Bearish TK cross. Cloud is bearish. I mean, this is not good. Angulation to the downside. So, like, does it bounce from here? Yeah, maybe. Overall, I think probably lower on some of these solar names. I mean, this is like a really big gap down, and you're kind of you're not seeing some kind of immediate reversal to that right now. I think that you're probably going to have, like, I wouldn't be too surprised if First Solar is going to spend some time, going down and sideways and down for a little while. Like, this was a really nice move up. Trended extremely hard. Supports held where you'd expect them to hold. Kijun was really nice opportunities. Your Tenkan certainly, it's a lot more choppy through that, but overall, like, it was a really nice uptrend. and then you got your gap down close inside a cloud, that's your sign of like, right? And that was it. So now you're trending the other way, basically. So it could be a little while. And the thing about this is like I mean, from a trend perspective and from like an Ichimoku perspective, it's just you're not you need to get back above 250 before this thing even potentially looks good enough to potentially like trend up again, right? So it's like you're not necessarily looking at I mean, this is a major resistance here too. This is a major. I would say this zone, which also obviously like coincides with the top of cloud for the time being, but this zone here is going to be a substantial resistance for First Solar going forward. And so like as long as you're below this, which you clearly are, this is yes, I think sideways and down is probably the probably the game. But I would be aware of this golden pocket again. Like a lot of times you'll see a nice bit of a bounce off of this region, but it doesn't mean that like a major low has to be put in. Sometimes it is. Sometimes that does, does happen. But for myself, no interest on First Solar from a long perspective, unless, again, you come down to test into this golden pocket somewhere. And then below that, if the golden pocket, which I think you probably are going to get some kind of a bounce off of here. It doesn't have to be anything substantial. Like you can maybe get like a playable bounce. But even if it kind of works its way lower, I think you have kind of a better region. You have a lot of confluence kind of down here around your 786. You have your point of control of this, and your S1 pivot. So like kind of like around this. It's like another support region for solar. If you're trying to, again, like if you're gonna play it like. If you're trading this, you're going to play how you're going to play it, right? And for whatever reasons you are, if you're bullish on solar, long term, whatever it is, like, just my job is just to try to like highlight and point out some stuff that I think is relevant to the specific name. And I do think, again, if the golden pocket area fails, then you're probably going to come back down here to the low to mid 150s. But there is really nice support around here, I think. Like, it's decent support. You got some decent confluence here to kind of be aware of. But again, like make no mistake about it, the trend is no longer bullish on the daily time frame. Okay, and we're gonna take a look at some higher time frames, but the daily is like this paints like a pretty clear picture. Over the next few months type thing. I think it's gonna take a bit of time to work itself out either way. And I don't think right here there's really you already had like Tuesday was your opportunity for a trade. Here is kind of like the result of that, and to me this is like too early for me to want to like try to long this and look. It's just I would rather wait for lower, or again maybe which I think lower is probably the more likely scenario for First Solar. I don't think that it fills this gap immediately. Like here, and this happens a lot with stocks. Like, I'll give you an example. Let me try to zoom in a little bit. So you had this gap down here, right? Which like your gap down, close below, nasty. Like this is telling you, oh my goodness, like we got, this beautiful uptrend that we've seen is likely like in big time jeopardy right now, like probably done, right? And then you didn't come close. I mean, you tried, but like, again, this red box of death, for example, is like you did not get close to having some kind of close above it. Every test, this was obviously like a very significant resistance level, and you were in no danger of filling this gap, right? Well, guess what? Now you have a second one here, a very big one, and my guess is you're gonna like the odds of you kind of like seeing something like this for another leg lower, that's kind of what I think. It's probably gonna rhyme with something like this is my guess. You don't necessarily have to like come at back, and I'm just trying to illustrate that you don't have to immediately come and fill this gap, which I know a lot of like traders think, oh, there's a gap there, that means like, oh, we're going back there first. No, that's not true. It's not always true anyway, I should say. Like, can it happen? Yes, of course it can. But usually with like really big gap downs like this, you're gonna it's not not very common to just immediately V-shape and fill the gap, and right, it's like it's could take some time in order to see these kind of develop. You know, and again, I think that like just from a resistance standpoint, if I'm looking at one level, this is a big one, like around, you know, 214 to 215, I think is really, you know, basically the high from a couple days ago. This is like support, gap down, resistance, right? And then pretty significant move off of that. This is another really big level, which, I mean, I don't know how I would kind of class this. I mean, you could probably make this pretty like this is another resistance now. So I would say from a you know, you get above 216 and then you can entertain, you know, another 10 to maybe 15-20 bucks move off of that is my guess. But I think that this, again, this resistance zone, I wouldn't be too surprised if it kind of plays out something like this, where maybe you get a bounce and you chop around here. I would say that's like, I would say best case, but like you know, I do think that this is likely going to be a pretty decent resistance, kind of like this was, if, you know, unless you get kind of that continuation, or you know, to like the 618 type of deal, which I'll just like elaborating on this maybe more than I need to, but if I was to look at longing the 618, this is a pretty good target. This is a pretty good like upper end target for this. And then, you know, like kind of like how I would look at this is, you know, if I were just looking at First Solar as a name and not like, you know, if I wasn't like super bullish on solar and I was just looking at it purely from a trade, here to here seems pretty decent. I mean, I'm just curious, kind of like what, I mean, 17%. Like, that's decent. Like that to me is definitely worth looking at. But this is definitely at least a take profit one for me, at least. And then I'd want to see again, where are your Tenkan and Kijun in relation? You know, again, when, you know, if and when we see this golden pocket, where are your TK lines? How does cloud look? You know, et cetera, et cetera. And like that's going to help like formulate the full trade is set up for me. But kind of how I look at this is point A to point B, right? So I think like the scenario I think is more likely is maybe this if you're lucky. And I mean, if you're lucky, I think that the golden pocket's a decent area, but it's more like does it produce this big of a bounce? That I don't know. But that's kind of what initially what I would be thinking. But this would definitely be an area of I'd be taking something off here if it was me. But as far as First Solar turning around, making new all-time, well, it's not new all-time highs, right? It's new highs. But, you know, as far as this being a nice move higher, getting your higher low, and then it, you know, continuing to the upside, very easy kind of region to watch is this top red box. You get especially a weekly close above like 253, then you can probably have some nice structure to hide behind for you know, even a later kind of like continuation trade setup, something like that. For the time being, that was a very long analysis for First Solar. What's next? We'll keep an eye on this one because
XYZ is interesting.
Okay, it better be really interesting. I'm just kidding. Block,
Yeah,
as in block that laid off 40% of the workforce yesterday.
Yeah.
And which might not be the first and only company that's going to be doing that over the next, you know, 5 years or so is my guess. Oh my goodness. Oh wow. Okay, so I did look at this like a long time ago. Like, I mean, yeah. They had to change their ticker. They changed their ticker? Wow, like I haven't looked at this in a really long time. Really long time. I mean, you're just range bound. Like you've been range bound. Holy smokes. For like, wow, 4 years of just sideways. Let me just take this off because of that. I mean, you're literally 4 years sideways in this range. Few things I guess I'd want to update. Like, yeah, okay, so last time I looked at this was 4 years ago. big resistance here, as far as the range goes, right? Which is kind of where we're stuck. What was block up? Like, it was up decently yesterday. Yeah, 20-30% or something. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really have much to say. I mean, why are we looking at this? Because of the news, like laying off
Yeah, it's
40% of the
just
workforce at
just
once.
because
It's like
the whole AI
that was a
the
pretty
whole AI
ballsy move
thing.
too. I got to give it to him.
But what was funny is that he got a lot of pushback on it because people were saying that it was more about him covering up uh his bad management for the last 4 years. Basically, they did a lot of they bought Tidal from Jay-Z, which is supposed to be like, I guess, like Spotify, and it was a
Yeah.
huge
You know
huge
what kind
loss.
of I didn't understand? So when I read that yesterday about him laying off 40% of, and then I looked and they had like 10,000 employees. And I'm like,
Yeah.
what do
What do they all do? What
10,000
do they do?
people do? Like, what do you really need 10,000 people? That just seems
Yeah.
absurd, right? And then it makes me think about Elon when Elon bought Twitter and fired a bunch of people, and the thing still runs. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, what do all
Yeah.
those
He's
people
he's
do?
notoriously had high
Yeah.
employee count
So
at
I
all of
mean,
his companies. So
10,000 employees. Like, I mean, if you're part of the 4,000 that was let go, sorry. It was tough. Well, I mean, I did read that. I didn't like try to do any kind of math or anything like that. But it seemed like the severance wasn't too bad. I don't know. It seemed like he
he was
was.
very nice, I will
I'd
say
say that.
that.
Yeah, I would say it, right. I would say, and it was interesting to see somebody take ownership of the whole thing too, and not done right. Like, you just fire people slowly or whatever it is, or just fire people and just you're done, whatever it is. I thought that he handled it kind of reasonably well for the circumstance. But I mean, again, it's to me, it's like if you fire 40% of your workforce in one day, like it, right? It's like you probably were doing a pretty bad job running that,
Exactly.
right? Like, that's what you're definitely like highlighting the fact that, wow, I'm not very, yeah, like it's probably could have done that a long time ago. It's my guess. And why your stock looks the way that it does. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Okay, so from a technical perspective, you're in a 4-year range, and it's a pretty big range, so I'll give you that. It's a pretty big range. Was this tradable? Honestly, this would be one that I just, which, guess what? I haven't looked at this name in 4 years, so that probably ought to say something. Do I think it's interesting here? I think it's interesting for the fact that now they have 40% less employees. So what's that going to translate to, right? And I think you saw yesterday, and it happened to kind of coincide with, like, nearing the bottom of this range, that the market liked that, event taking place. Does this have legs to continue? That's the part that I don't, again, I haven't thought about. I think again, workforce reduction, that big, you're likely to have some positive effect, I would think, over time. But is that enough? I don't know. When I don't know. And I'm not really that I don't have that much to say here. I mean, you're at a very big resistance region. You're at your yearly pivot. Excuse me. You're at your yearly pivot, which you've already tested and had a big rejection off of the general area. You're at your point of control. You're literally at your macro point of control, which is a huge level, and you're at this 4-year range point of control, which obviously, like, you see it going up and down, up and down, up and down. But I would say, just looking at the volume node here, this is a big hurdle to clear. I think if you can get back above your yearly pivot around 68, then yes, I would be looking for some of these higher targets. So that's what I would say. Is this one that I'm going to be trading myself personally? Probably not, to be honest with you. But I do see, like, I could see some reason to kind of pay attention to it. and if block is something that you're heavily interested in, then I do think that, I mean, I would say that, you know, yesterday's yesterday's event of him literally firing 40% of all the employees that work for block, probably not a bearish catalyst, I guess, right? I think it's probably not a bad thing for them. Does that rescue this ugly chart and push them up to, you know, break them out of this 4-year range? I'm not sure, but the market seems to like the move initially. This is one I think, again, we can follow. We can keep an eye on this one and see if anything presents itself. Yeah. How much time you got left?
10.
What do you want to look at?
I mean, we always do Bitcoin. It hasn't really done much, so maybe we should skip that one.
Well, it's done. Like, I am short. Like, I am in a position. I mean, that one I can probably cover reasonably fast. I probably want to do my scalping chart is going to look absolutely horrific. Absolutely horrific. I can tell you that right now. Just because I've been trading it quite a bit. Yeah, I had a nice move up to 70,000. Kind of one. We'll get some clean outlook on it. This is bad news right here, by the way. So here, I mean, it basically came up to your value area high of this range, okay? And pretty nasty rejection. So value area high, broke below, rejection here at your point of control, which was my short. Like why I got into a short. Just before I went to the casino last night. Absolutely killed at the casino too. I sent you that video. That was a pretty good one.
That was a good one.
But anyway, I took a short before I went to the casino. And yeah, it's like a really nice down move. And honestly, this is doing like this is very simply like just for like simple you know, like it was as simple as that as far as looking for a short. And honestly, I could have taken it sooner. I just wasn't paying attention. I think I was at the gym. Was it? Yeah, I was at the gym when this happened. When the spike to 70K happened, so I was late on that. But anyway, as long as you're below 65.8, I mean, look, this is your value area low of this range. Below here, you are at risk of seeing this continue back down, and you know, I do think that you probably get another bounce around 63, 64, or something like that. But this is not great. And I do think that, and again, this value area low, pretty simply put, like you had your range rotation to value area high. You lost your point again. Break this down. Range rotation, value area high. Your point of control, you essentially flip this into support, rejection, lost, rejection. Down to your value area low of the range, support, 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 lost, rejection, rejection. See what happens here. This is very simple range trading though. Again, like if you are new to my channel, I do have like 6 videos talking about trading ranges from literally, you know, video 1 to video 6. It goes in order and it's very much beginner based. I would say beginner to intermediate. I think that it can, you know, it points out a lot of these strategies and stuff like that, and how to identify ranges, how to, you know, how to look for meaningful levels within them, et cetera, et cetera. Like this would make a lot of sense if you watch those videos. But very simple, right? So I could go to my scalping chart and it's going to be a mess because I got a lot of stuff on there. I've been taking, you know, been in and out of trades and stuff, and I'm not the best at like keeping my chart clean. When it's me, like I get it, you know. But you know, for YouTube, you try to keep things a little cleaner. And this is very simple. It doesn't need anything else really. This is very clean, but my volume is very helpful a lot of times. So anyway, this is the area to watch. Get back above here, you know, get back into this range, and we can talk about, you know, again, maybe a bit of a bounce off of here, but currently this doesn't look very good. And we're about to close the month. We're getting to month end here. Yeah, and so that's a good one to touch on, I guess, is my thesis on Bitcoin hasn't changed. It hasn't changed. I think that you got, where is the, oh my goodness, do I really not have that? Okay, I can do it on here. I'm gonna have to ignore all this stuff because I haven't looked at this one in a little while. I want that, I want this, but it needs to be this.
We need Bitcoin chart to look like that.
There we go. So this I'm just gonna use this here just because this is like I don't want to have to go load and find my Ichimoku. Like it's gonna be too much work. But it's quite simply put, on a weekly time frame, not much has changed, right? Like this is still, you're still well below cloud. I do like the idea of like I would entertain, and honestly I've been waiting for this and I haven't got this yet. But I would love a 74K push. Like I would like that. I'm not so sure that that's going to happen from this posturing here. But I would entertain that as like a very significant level of interest for myself. But to the downside, I remain in the same kind of bias that I've had for the last 3 to 4 weeks of this low is not the low, right? So like that's me, that's my opinion. I don't think the low's in. But I don't necessarily expect, like, I do think that this is a very strong support region, is my point still. And this is missing my other green box that I had because this is a different template. But I already had bought some IBIT, but I haven't bought any spot. Well, actually I did buy a little bit of spot, but not much, enough for me to care about. Because I do think that we're heading lower. I still have my bids in. So I would like lower. I think we're going lower, but I'm, you know, I am trading as you know, I'm trading my plan basically. I'm not getting trying not to get emotional. I'm just trying to trade what I expect, right? You trade your plan. For me, it's lower. And I do think that this is a pretty significant, you know, around 57. 57K is your anchor view from your literal cycle low in 2022. And that has been great support along the way. You're close, right? Your golden pocket of literally the entire move is also sitting, you know, around 57K. This, you know, this trend line is not that important to me. It's on there anyway. It's decent, but this is, I would say, less important confluence from that aspect. But I just think that this is a decent area, like to look for, you know, again, anywhere from like low 50s to high 50s, I think is a decent. I think that we have a chance to have like a minimum a really decent bounce out of that area. And maybe that ends up on some like higher time frame weekly swing failure pattern of 60K. So, you know, like I could see that putting in a sizable bounce and maybe getting us, you know, getting us up to that the mid 70s, mid to high 70s, something like that. Like I could see that. But I do think that this is gonna take some time to resolve. Like I wouldn't be that surprised if, you know, in a few months we're still kind of looking in this similar, you know, kind of like general region. Like I don't think we have to be at 100K in 2 months. That'd be nice, but I don't necessarily expect that. But it's, you know, again, my thesis literally 3 to 4 weeks later is the same as it was, and it's just been a range, right? Like you went on to, I can switch back to this other one now, and I mean, again, just looking at this, you have been range bound since the beginning of February. That's it. So I'm not expecting any substantial crazy stuff to happen really either. You know, early March, we'll see how kind of like the month closes. And you know, I do think that we could see some pretty decent volatility going into March. You know, and by that I mean like to either side. I'm not married, and that's, I want to be clear about that too. Like, I'm not married to the fact that we have to go lower. I just think that, like, I've been trading Bitcoin a long time now. It's like you've you know, you just kind of, you see the same, you know, similar things kind of like play out over and over and over and over and over again. It doesn't mean that it's going to happen. It just means that the odds are, you know, the odds are kind of favoring that we at least revisit this low. To be honest with you, on this spike, so like, I'll tell you, like, we had some decent confluence here. There were a couple of things for this spike. So number one, that was a daily, which was one of the levels in Discord that I spoke about. And then you also kind of go down a little bit lower time frame. It was also your 786. So you had a nice, you know, you had a little bit of a bounce over here on your golden pocket. See, I'm gonna stretch it all the way out over here. This took a lot of time though. That's the thing. Not very like visually took a lot of time to kind of come back to this level. Got a little bit of a bounce off of that. But ultimately, again, you had your 786, which it was like perfect. Right? Like, I'll draw another line here. 786, you can see that. It's perfect. And you got a really nice bounce off of that. That was a pretty deep retracement. Although, like, to be honest with you, I was kind of liking for this to go a bit deeper, which is probably why it didn't. I didn't long this. But you had good confluence here to do that. So, you know, I was also asleep. See, that's I was asleep. But still, like, I could have longed later. I chose not to. But it made it all the way up to 70K. 786 daily, nice confluence there. But ultimately, just to the top side of the, you know, again, value area high, and then you're seeing it literally rotated, you know, still range bound overall, but like, this is definitely weaker. It's definitely weaker. High, low, lower high, lower low, lower high. Do we come back down? Feels that way. Which is why I'm short. It feels that way. So, you know, kind of have like a series of lower highs. You have two lower lows. Does this come down and make another lower low? I'll tell you what, like, I do think, again, this 62, 63, kind of like the same bounce area right here. I would be aware of that. You got your, you know, you tapped it. Obviously, it gave you a really nice bounce, but I would be still aware of this for a support. But you get below this, and I think that, like, what I would have liked to have seen is for this to actually come down a little bit lower, and you know, get around this 886, something like that, and then like have a bounce from there. From there, it's like, I would think, okay, this, to me, in my mind, that like has more of a chance to push up to higher levels. Like, run this, you know, this 72K high, something like that, into the 73, 74, like I really wanted. That's kind of what I would have wanted to see. This is still a little shallow, I would say, by Bitcoin standards. Like, I'd want to see like even lower tests of this, some kind of like slight front run of this low, which also would, in my mind, it would be like, okay, like, we are definitely, like, you know, the odds increase even more that at some point in the future, next month or two or whatever, like, we are likely going to see like fair lower lows on that. But yeah, this, you have any thoughts, Tig? Are you still here? Did you guys leave? You might have had to leave. But anyway, that's my thoughts, essentially. That I think that we're likely to go below 60K. Nothing's changed on that front for me. You know, as long as you're below this value area low, especially 65.8, it's just, this is, you got your rotation, you got your really nice bounce off of here, but I'd just be a little bit aware of this level. If I get back around like 69K, that would be pretty decent. Into that, like, again, one really big, oh, wrong chart. Oh my goodness, here we go. One really big level of interest for me is just going to be, again, it's the bottom of cloud. Around, you know, 74K, something like that. Which I know, you know, there's a fair bit of eyes on that region. 79 would be a pretty big push, I think. Not possible. But the thing that I like about this is your Tenkan is going to start aggressively coming down, and you can see the forecasting dots. Like, over the next month and a half, 2 months, this Tenkan is going to very aggressively start to move to the downside, which will help to me, you know, again, provide some, you know, another point of contact, another potential resistance. So kind of what does that also say is like this could take a little bit of time to resolve itself, which I do think that it will. Like, I think that we're still in kind of the, you know, earlier stages of this, you know, like we can certainly spend more time chopping around, consolidating in here, but, or, you know, or kind of like the more likely scenario to me again is to kind of like, I wouldn't be shocked if we make a kind of a new low first and then another bounce, and maybe kind of like try to push, like extend this range out a bit. That would be also fair. But again, thoughts on Bitcoin haven't changed as far as the higher time frames go. There's a lot of trades to be had on lower time frames, though. I mean, I literally showed you, like, just a few minutes ago, like the amount of there's certainly a ton of scalping, ton of lower time frame trading you can be doing on Bitcoin. That's, you know, that continues to be a really nice area to be paying attention. But for the higher time frame stuff, to me, again, not much has changed. So I think my partner had to leave. Here to go. I think he only had an hour or something like that. But I think we'll probably go ahead and cut it here. And, you know, again, just a nice shorter hour-long Friday stream going into the weekend. I hope all of you guys have a great weekend. And, you know, we'll pick this up early next week. And, you know, we're going to have some month-end closures, that type of stuff. So I would definitely tune in to our early next week streams. We're highly probable that we're going to do a stream on Barron Street Research as well next week. Don't miss it. Hope you guys have a great weekend. Trade safe out there. We'll see you on the next one.